Welcome to PBCJ Presents, our weekly current affairs discussion program where we take a deep dive into matters affecting Jamaica land we love. I am Maya Chung. This week on PBCJ Presents, we take a look at Project STAR, which is seeking to raise social standards among Jamaicans using human capital development.
The local JCF represented on the SDC and our local team. And the community intervention team meet every 2 weeks to really talk about what's happening in the community, to agree on the strategies that we're all going to be doing, STAR and the work that we're doing in the CSSB, and really kind of provide a kind of context of to what's happening. We also have the Community Transformation Board, and when it comes to sort of a pyramid of engagement with communities, the top of the pyramid is what you consider ownership. That's the ideal state that we want our communities to get to. And the Community Transformation Board is the model that allows us, or the vehicle that allows us to get there. The CTB is made up of community members and stakeholders. So it's made up of residents, community-based organizations, local school principal, local church, the members that really participate in the overall life cycle of that community. And then what we have are the community transformation plans. And the community transformation plans are developed by the community that really identify what the strategies are that are going to be implemented over the 3 to 4 year period. The Community Transformation Board really helps develop the plans. And then we go through a process of community planning so that the entire community is engaged in a consultative process to be able to identify that these are the strategies. And at the basis of the Community Transformation Plan is the data, both the data that we have from the JCF and the hospitals, but also the social indicator data. But on top of that, you layer on the contextual data, sort of what's happening in the community, culturally, what's going on, what are some of the things that you won't necessarily pick up in data points. And you really get a sense of what's happening. And then from that, the community transformation plans are developed and they're signed off on by the community. We also look at how we develop really effective partnerships that allow us to be able to do this planning and roll out effectively. We mentioned earlier the Technical Stakeholder Working Group, which is made up of the MDAs, which is really about making sure that we're identifying what the services are in communities that are needed and need to be provided, and how we are able to deliver that along with partners in a really sustainable way. And then we also make sure that we have local teams and partners that drive the change. One of the early things we found in our communities was that the local CBO ecosystem wasn't as vibrant as it once was. And some of the profiles showed that there are fewer active CBOs today than there were sort of 10, 15, 20 years ago. And this is an area that required us to move quite quickly in engaging in a really fulsome way those partners that are on the ground. And we've been able to really do that in East Downtown Kingston. And at the core of everything that we do, Keith mentioned our 52 indicators. We have 3 midterm outcomes, 7 short-term outcomes, is the measurement of what we're doing. The measurement, the tracking, the reporting. And I guess today is part of that process of us kind of reporting to you what we've been able to do in East Downtown as an example. So we've been on the ground in East Downtown for 7 months. When we first go in, we do a lot of work around kind of just engaging the community, trying to build trust. In a community like East Downtown, which has had a lot of interventions over the last 30 years, there's initially a lack of trust, and how we address that is by really working with the community stakeholders to identify what is of utmost importance to them and what can be delivered very quickly. One of the things that we were able to develop very quickly, I guess because of the benefit of being private sector, is the work around employment. And so we've been able to work with the community to increase the economic sufficiency through training and employment. We've had 2 sets of training in East Downtown. 58 residents have received training, and we've managed to get 48 ready for employment. And it's really exciting to note, of our first cohort, 90% have been placed in jobs. And also another important indicator is the percentage that complete. So whoever starts the training, how many complete? And we have a 96% completion rate, which is again an indication of people that are engaged and that are feeling that there is a pathway for them. And also just to identify, so I want to tell you a little story about Akeem on the left. So Akeem is from Rose Gardens. He would have, not a man that's in any trouble, but really somebody who's kind of falling through the cracks. And Akeem came to our first employment training and got really involved. And it was very clear that he wanted to be a stevedore driver, which is what they do at the ports. or controller. I'm always getting the terminology wrong. And that's what he wanted to do. And so we worked with Akeem to try and get him that kind of role, which we did with Kingston Terminal as a trainee. He's working as a trainee, a lashings trainee. He recently did his exams, and he got 93% on his practical and 98% on his theory. Whenever we have activities, Akeem comes and volunteers. So he wasn't starting work for a few weeks, and we were doing our second cohort of employment training. And Akeem came out and volunteered every day and supported with the training. We had an event on Monday night called Suited for Success, where we brought a number of the young men together from the community to talk about how we make sure they get properly attired for work and how we can support that. And Akeem gave a motivational speech to all of them about the benefits of really developing themselves. But prior to this, Akeem was just wandering the community, not causing any trouble, but look at the contribution that he's now making. Just one person and one massive contribution. And if we can find all those people that are not necessarily causing trouble, and there are a lot of them, but they are falling through the cracks, then we may not have such an issue with our human capital needs in Jamaica if we can really pull them out. What they need is they need hand-holding support to be able to move forward. The other thing is that we've been working towards community-wide financial inclusion. So at STAR, we look at individual economic development, but we also look at community-wide. What's important to us is to make sure that when Akeem does really, really well, that there is a community that he wants to stay in to raise his family. We don't want Akeem to leave. Right? When people do well in their community, you don't want them to have to leave. You want them to stay in the community because the entire community has been uplifted and is now a place where everybody wants to live and raise families and really progress because their heritage and their history is there. But I always ask people, you know, if you live in one of our communities, let's say you live in a community off Spanish Town Road, you're a father, you have two sons, 7 and 9, and it's Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m., and your kids say, Dad, we want to go do something. Where are you taking your kids? If you don't have much money, where are you taking your kids? You need to have facilities, you need to have activities. There needs to be a football match that Dad says, come, we're going to go watch this football match around the corner, or we're going to take you to the park, or I'm going to take you here to do this. We cannot expect families to be able to thrive in an ecosystem where we're not providing any of the resources that they need. Financial inclusion is a step to making sure that the whole of the wider community is progressing at the same time that you're also impacting individuals. And so financial inclusion, we've done a lot of work to make sure we've had 330 residents improve financial, be included within the financial ecosystem. A big part of what we're trying to do is make sure that they themselves are positioned to access the economic pathways that open up for them. Because very often you may see that there is an economic pathway, but it's not open to them. Why? They don't have a birth certificate. They don't have their TRN. There's basic documentation. They can't get a job because they don't have a food handler certificate. So what we need to do is make sure that we're moving barriers and we're opening up access. Sports is a really, really important strategy for communities. It's important because it builds social cohesion, it engages young people, and it creates a pathway for young people to start getting engaged. It is not an end goal. It is merely one of those tools that we use in development to really engage and drive development. So, for example, in East Downtown, we have 440 people who are involved in sports, and much of it is weekly. And that opens up opportunities for youth engagement. But also within a community that really was on lockdown for so long, where there really wasn't much happening in the community. In the last seven months, they've had 61 sporting sessions in the community. Some of it very informal, street side activity, basketball, football, can you go back? But some of it very much organized by the community. And so in partnership with the JCF and the SDC, the CDC in Rose Gardens put together a sports day for the community. They hadn't had an activity of this nature for many years in Rose Gardens, but they felt now that there was this ecosystem, there was a system of support that allowed them to be able to do this. On Labor Day, the youth club coming out of Gold Street wanted to have a football competition while everybody else was laboring. They said, you know what, we want to have a good time, and we're okay with that. Right? And they came out, they had 16 teams of 4 that throughout the day were just doing this little mini tournament on the street. And again, working with the JCF, who make sure that they have the space to be able to do that freely on the streets, because the streets are where they have. And if we don't create that kind of system for them, then we're invariably keeping them locked up inside. So children and family-based support is really, really important. STAR's been working with schools, with the early childhood institutions. We've started some work with parenting. We have a really good social worker, and we've got really good partnerships with the schools to really start looking at parenting. We had our first parenting session last month, and it was full. And the parents asked lots and lots of questions. They were very engaged, they were very involved. What they've identified is they want to be able to support their children, but they need help. They need signposting, they need additional resources, not for themselves, but within the community that their children can access. And so we've been able to benefit 283 families in East Downtown. We've also done some work around social protection, making sure that we're working with elders. We've been able to work with about 205 elders to make sure that we're getting, proper nourish, that they're not being isolated, that socially they can become part of the community again, that they have access to path. Keith mentioned this, access to services, and really working through that with them. But then also there's a lot of work that needs to happen with regards to counseling and therapy. Whether it is we've identified young men through our reasoning sessions, high-risk youth that need support. We've had a number of individuals on an employment program who really needed to go through therapy support before they're ready to be placed in jobs and so on. It's a really important component of communities. And this reduces vulnerabilities through social protection. But also the school feeding program that we've done in 4 ECIs, the goal of that was to increase school attendance rates because many of the young people had stopped coming to school because their parents couldn't afford lunch. And the result is it has increased school attendance. And then when we talk about the police, they're a core partner in the community. In East Downtown, that's Sergeant Johnson, who's been very, very involved. She's a member of the CSSB. And they've been able to really demonstrate their commitment to community policing approaches in East Downtown Kingston. They do this in a number of ways with STAR. One is through the community intervention team, where they sit on these bi-weekly meetings to really talk about what we're going to be doing and to give their input. Also that they have led and partnered on some community activities. I mentioned the community football day, but they've also done reasoning sessions and conversations. They do lots of walkabouts, and they also provide family support services for people who are victims of trauma and these sorts of things. And again, the result is that we're seeing improvements in community police relations. And then one of the most important components of the work that we do is around it being community-led and community-owned. And being data-driven. This is at the fore of how you really drive change at the community level. So through all the work that's been happening in East Downtown Kingston, working through the local community-based organizations, working with local community members, we've been able to consult. Over 800 people have been involved in the consultation process in terms of really contributing to what should be happening with STAR.
An ambitious project, that's a word that Julian uses a lot the last couple of days. It's an ambitious target, he says. So STAR has to be paid for, and in different contexts we've suggested it is the largest private sector-led social community development initiative that the country has ever seen. And so that means we have a lot of private sector support, but we want to expand that because, again, we said it's an all-the-way approach.
And we go to a break at this time. You're watching PBCJ Presents. I am Maya Chung. We have much more when we return.
Immerse yourself in the elegance and charm of the Courtly Hotel and Suites. Enjoy our jerk barbecue night by the poolside each Wednesday, or celebrate your special events for your wedding, anniversary, birthday, or just a relaxing weekend getaway. Unique, personalized, inviting. The Courtly Hotel and Suites.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. You're watching PBCJ Presents. I'm Maya Chung. Our topic this week is Project STAR.
It's years, decades that transforming human capital Jamaica is a topical discussion. We've heard many say, but that takes too long. And we as a people haven't committed to it adequately. STAR is a project that puts this front and center and makes it clear that the job to get this done is now. And the mechanism that we have discussed and that we have committed to is a mechanism to get it done in as broad-based a manner as possible. Again, lining up with all-the-way approach and lining up that all of us are a part of the change that we want to see in Jamaica. So, ambitious project, ambitious targets, yes, funding-wise. For year one, target for STAR's funding is approximately $400 million. Year two, we're going to be targeting roughly $650. In total, we're talking about $2 billion in total that will be targeted, and actually these pillars are all complementary and will play different roles in the funding target for STAR. So far, for the $2 billion, STAR has already achieved commitments of approximately $300 million, a meaningful component of the overall target. The rest of these, of course, will be rolled out, and we have targeted amounts, yes, but we, of course, hope to overachieve on a number of these targets and be able to expand the work that STAR intends to do, not only within the 10 communities already discussed, but reaching into that 100 identified by the PIOJ as being communities that need the type of support that STAR is designed to deliver. With regard to the year one target, just to correct myself, target of $250 million is what is being targeted for STAR. Already, commitments of approximately $150 million have been achieved. The STAR Social IPO, the launch of the social shares in Project STAR, is what's going to fill that gap. We know, of course, the gap may also be complemented by additional contributions from the corporate who have been already extremely supportive of Project STAR. But we have this $100 million target to be raised from the social IPO, and we believe firmly that this target will be achieved. The social IPO really is bringing together two things. One, those who are expert in making an impact on social projects, along with those who are expert in raising financing. These two groups have typically not been in the same place at the same time, working towards the same objective. Through the JSSE, the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange, we're bringing them together. We're bringing them together in a unique funding structure that is a social IPO, the launch of social shares in Project STAR. This is going to be supported by the entire broker-dealer community. We've gotten the support of the Jamaica Security Dealers Association and the direct support of a number of co-brokers to the project. We have on board NCB Capital Markets, we have on board Sagicor, we have on board Mayberry, we have on board Barito, we have on board GMMB, we have on board Scotia, and we have others coming on board and signing their agreements at this point. We also have on board the Bankers Association. Through all of the banks, you will also be able to make contributions. We have on board also the credit unions. So the mechanisms for participation, whether direct contributions or participations in social shares themselves as a part of the IPO process, we've ensured that it's broad-based, we've ensured that it's easy, and we give thanks to all of the partners on the funding side for this collaborative approach. The ambitious nature of this project is that we can make a difference in the trajectory of Jamaica by impacting human capital. You've heard a lot about it. The truth is that when we know it to be true, then it's almost fait accompli. We will do more of it. And that's part of why we're using this platform of an IPO, which ensures a very broad distribution of the ownership of Project STAR, essentially. Each person who would have made a contribution will own a piece of the success of this project. They'll be reported to as any shareholder would in any publicly listed company. They'll find themselves with quarterly reports coming into their inbox. They'll see their ownership of shares represented in the Jamaica Central Securities Depository, who will evidence the ownership of social shares in Project STAR in each investor's account. This will ensure the electronic trail for reporting is in place, and reporting is the foundation of Project STAR's transparency and accountability. What they're doing with funds, the impact of it, again, this is a data-driven project, and therefore you, the investors in this social IPO, will get the benefit of the data. Will get the benefit of what your contribution would have done, your investment in human capital, how it would have changed the trajectory of the communities that STAR has chosen to engage with directly. This is a transformative moment. Never before have we seen a situation where all of Jamaica can own a part of transforming the future of our country. And I don't believe that there's been a time before where we're all as aligned that this must be done. We're seeing hopelessness as a normal course of, as normal part of everybody's belief. And that hopelessness is something we need to break the back of. Again, that is also a self-fulfilling mindset. So we want not only the people to be impacted by STAR's engagement, but we want every shareholder to be impacted by the power of us working together to invest in, just like we do invest in companies that get listed. And we know that when we work together and we put in our money and we buy shares in an IPO, the trajectory of those companies often changes, and it changes positively. The ambitions of those companies change. They're no longer mom and pop. They're now owned by the people as a public company, and their ambitions become larger. Their profitability typically grows. Their employment grows. In the same way, we want the ownership of Project STAR by the public to ensure that this positive impact that has been seen in the communities entered in already, everybody will recognize, let's have our company grow. Let's expand it throughout the rest of the country. Let's impact more communities, impact more people. That very confidence, that knowledge, that we don't have to wait on anybody else to be the factor of change, but to recognize that change is within our hands. And through the cooperation with the government, with the JCF, with the NGOs, with Project STAR, and with the communities, we can change the trajectory of Jamaica. So again, as a stock exchange chair, I'm extremely proud that we put in place the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange. I'm extremely proud that the management and team, led by Marlin Street Forest, would have seen it fit to support the initiative and put in place the infrastructure to make a social IPO possible. I'm extremely proud as well that the broker-dealer community would have seen it fit to sign up, to come on board, and to commit to exposing their clients, their investors, to opportunity to own a part of social change as a part of their portfolio of investment, recognizing full well that every investor is investing for a better tomorrow. And a part of your portfolio should be a share in Project STAR, a share in transforming the human capital of Jamaica. We expect to see the prospectus out. The prospectus typically will be that guiding document that you see before an IPO hits the market. It's going to tell you all about what it is that a company intends to do typically. In this case, it's going to tell you about the project plans to do. It's going to tell you how it intends to measure itself. Therefore, it'll give you the KPIs that you should be able to follow. It's also going to tell you what the reporting is like, the governance structure of Project STAR, and it will give you all of the things that you would typically come to expect from any public listing of a for-profit company. That transparency is a key component of Project STAR. It's a key component of how it will be positioned. You'll find that the offer will now be open for investment. The broker-dealer communities acting as co-brokers on this transaction will give access to investors to invest in the human capital of Jamaica, to own a share in Project STAR. The platforms are already up on the STAR website. The JSSC will also be launching their platform to be able to take in investments directly. The credit unions similarly, and along with the banks. So expect that roughly on the 22nd of this month for the project to be open to the public. But as I said, by the end of this week, expect that you're going to get a lot more details in the form of the prospectus. I know prospectus is heavy reading for many, and we do rely on the broker community and experts in the financial field to digest it and to explain what it represents as far as an investment opportunity to the investing public. In the same way, this 1 week lead time of launching of the prospectus prior to launching of the deal will allow for those in the industry who are analysts, who are thought leaders, to take a look on the prospectus, digest it, be able to speak to investors as to what they can expect, and if they deem fit, for them to endorse it and recommend it for investment. We give you the first chance to really dive in deeply, to understand more about this project and understand what we believe this project to represent to each investor and to the communities that will be impacted.
And that's our show for this week. Thank you for watching. I've been your host, Maya Chung. The topic has been Project STAR. Remember to follow us on all our socials at PBCJamaica. Email your feedback to pbcjpresents@pbcjamaica.org. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more great programming on this station.
Register your child so they're able to check out a book or two and take it home and just have them read it to you.